Welcome to the story of immortality. You're about to enter a magical world. We invite you to savor the feeling of peace, love, and wisdom as it opens your eyes to your true self, to reality itself. The sessions are designed to uplift you as you access the subtle, eternal spiritual universe that moves within this physical world. To take maximum benefit from this series, we recommend the following important tips. Sit in a quiet place where you can be alone for an hour. We ask you to take this time out and be with yourself with no distractions. Sit with your spine straight, either in a comfortable chair or on the floor. This will ensure that the energy flowing in your body will support what you're hearing. Keep your phones in silent mode and away from you in another room for the whole hour. We encourage you to keep your camera on. Our experience has taught us that other participants will be inspired to see you. We will record these sessions. Only the speakers and not the participants will be recorded. 5 languages are available for translation. To select a language, click on the interpretation button, and then you can opt for Hindi, Spanish, French, Telugu, or Tamil by clicking on one of them. This is our registration link. It is not mandatory, but if you would like to receive the recordings and other information, then do register.
Om Shanti. Very warm welcome to everyone. Welcome to the story of immortality, presented by Brahma Kumaris. So we have finished episode 12. It's a very interesting journey, right? So today is the day for our episode 13. It's karma. So that's the topic for today. And it's so nice that generally on weekends, family get together, right? So we all have become a family and we are getting together to do something wonders, right? So again, welcome. And now we quickly go through our today's program flow, and then our angel sister Shireen will be with us and she will introduce us our today's guest speaker. Om Shanti.
This program, The Story of Immortality, will enlighten you through insights, visuals, and meditations. We will begin soon with 15 minutes of sharing with a senior teacher. Then Sister Shireen or Sister Dorothy will make a 30-minute presentation, interspaced with 2 meditations that unwrap the book. Lastly, we will address questions from participants for 10 minutes. Warm greetings, everyone. Om Shanti. Welcome to the philosophy of karma. And so today our guest is Sister Mary. Sister Mary takes care of the Chicago Center, and she has been practicing the teachings of the story of immortality for the last 30 years. Mary, 35 years?
33.
33 years. There you go. What a divine number. So, welcome. How have you been?
Very happy, looking forward to joining the family and getting ready for Raksha Bandhan, which for us is going to be tomorrow. So it's a special time.
Yes, yes. So 33 years ago, to jog your memory, you first heard about the karma philosophy. What stood out for you?
Well, at my age, it's hard to remember the past, but what did jog my memory was actually something that happened shortly before I took the course. I had just returned to San Francisco after living abroad for 2 years. I was unemployed, and a couple of bills were coming due, and I didn't have the money to pay them. So one day I'm sitting around and I'm thinking, how am I going to pay these bills? An answer didn't come, but a check from the government came in the mail for the amount of money that I needed to pay those 2 bills. And I recognized that there's some kind of accounting mechanism somewhere. Somewhere in the universe, there's some kind of accounting mechanism. And I didn't understand it at that point, but I loved it. And I said, yes, there is justice somehow.
So when you first heard, by the way, today is the first time they will be hearing about karma philosophy. So if you want to, elaborate on something, just be mindful of that. When you first heard, what stood out? Did you feel like, did you agree with it? Did you disagree with it?
Karma philosophy seemed very natural to me. There were other parts of the knowledge which it took me years to understand, but karma philosophy intrinsically, because I've always been very interested in justice. And I always have gotten upset and even aggressive before I was a Brahmin over injustice, particularly social injustice, as was really a big issue in the United States when I was growing up. And so when I heard the karma philosophy, I could say, yes, there is justice in the universe. Whatever we do, we're going to receive the return of it somehow, sometime, someplace. And I still didn't like what I was seeing in terms of discrimination, warfare, and things like that. But I understood that as I continue with my spiritual studies, these things will become more clear to me. But I always held on to that belief that there is justice. And so to fight injustice is absurd. And it really made me totally shift. It shifted my consciousness away from pointing fingers and joining movements and joining demonstrations. And I didn't have to do any of that before. All I had to do, was work on I did do it before, but I didn't have to do it anymore. All I had to do now was work on myself.
Fabulous. So you were talking about there was some aspects of the knowledge that it took you years to understand. What aspect of the knowledge took you instantly? What did you get right away? What drew you to doing this?
My very first class, and I really, truly did not think I was going to be able to meditate because I was very type A. But I did it anyway, and I had my class with Sister Gita in the little tiny library of the center in San Francisco. And when the class was over and she said, "Your soul," I said, "Okay." She took me in Baba's room and sat behind me and played the first track of Traveling Beyond, the only meditation commentary we had at that point in time. And I experienced myself as a soul. I thought, well, this is easy. And then the second class, she told me about God. And I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then she took me into the meditation room, sat behind me, played the second track, which was about God. And I had an experience of the Supreme Soul. And that really bowled me over. And it was really those two experiences that kept me going for the many years that it was required for me to understand the knowledge.
So what aspects of the knowledge you didn't understand?
The cycle. And that you'll be getting into next week. So
No,
think
no,
I
we
can just.
finished the cycle. We finished the cycle.
Oh, you finished the cycle. So I couldn't get into linear time. I was very entrenched in the Western scientific idea of linear time.
Right, right. So at some point, from living on your own, you were a yoga instructor and you were living on your own.
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to living in the center?
I owned a home and it had a yoga studio in the basement. And I had a roommate who was a BK. And every Saturday, the roommate would go to the center and do service. And I was teaching yoga on Saturdays. And so I would hire a cleaning lady to come and clean the house. And then I would go and clean the center. And I thought, this is insane. So I offered the center to Sister Chandu for service. And it was in San Francisco. If you know San Francisco, there are a lot of high hills. And this house was on a very steep hill. You had to go up 1.5 flights of stairs just to get to the front door. And then, of course, you had to go up the hill to even get to the staircase. So Sister Chandra said, well, that's a good place for the young and the fit. You can give meditation to your yoga students, but other people aren't going to be able to get there. So that was when I decided, well, why am I living here then? And so I told Sister Chandru that I wanted to be closer to the center. And I said, I would like to live in the center, but if you don't think that that's a good idea, I'll just get an apartment across the street. And she said, well, you can come in the center and try it out. So I was there for about 8 years before I came to Chicago. She was my teacher.
The trial was 8 years.
Yeah.
Trial period of what, 1-2 months?
It was a trial in many different ways. One is, in the one hand, I was very comfortable living with a lot of people because I grew up in a large family. So that wasn't an issue. But a difference in point of view, I was very kind of contemporary, and Sister Chandru was very traditional. And we were constantly seeing every single thing differently. And she was extremely patient with me. She was very respectful. She said, this is the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be. But she also gave me a lot of leeway for things that didn't really matter. So that was a big issue for me. Plus, the other sisters left after I came. So it was just Chandraben and myself. Chandraben was my main relationship at that point in time, not Baba. But then later on, when I came to Chicago, I realized everything and then I was on my own in Chicago, I realized everything that I needed to know, I learned from Chandraben.
Wow, that's great. So tell me how, when you moved into the center, how your understanding of karma deepened.
When I moved into the center, I would say I realized that bad habits that I had not dealt with before, because I was on my own. I had my own home. Even though I had roommates, I was the owner of the building. Getting along with other people, I kind of went off on my own, so I didn't have to develop that side of myself. And when I moved into the center, it was kind of a catching up. My karma was catching up with me. And qualities such as humility, faith, respect, cooperation, I needed those at a much higher level. And I realized that I was kind of out there hanging out with a bunch of very independent people before. And so it was kind of time for me to address these. And I felt that the karma philosophy was a way that life kind of gives us what we really need at the moment. And it's not only the result of our past actions, but if there's something that we need and we have not voluntarily taken that on, part of our karma is that we will get that.
In a good way or a bad way? What do you mean by that?
It could be either. I mean, it's good because, for example, if there are qualities that we haven't developed, we will be required to develop those qualities. That was the way I experienced it, that it was kind of my karmic return of my life of kind of running around and doing whatever I wanted for a long period of time. It wasn't a bad return. That life was good at the time. And then that life ceased to interest me anymore. And I went on to another life, another lifestyle, which gave me a higher level of a divine intellect.
So are you saying that lifestyle is somehow related to karma, and some lifestyle and karma are somehow related to having a higher conscious or a divine intellect?
I think absolutely. They support each other. Everything, there is just one universal energy, and it gets us in these different ways. And I loved what one comment that Sister Kala made at some meetings that we had last weekend. And she was talking about our Murli, our daily lesson. And somebody said, now that we're in a different place in the drama, are there special lessons that we should be particularly focusing on? And Sister Kala said, you choose whatever you're drawn to, because that is connected with every other point of knowledge. Every point of knowledge is connected with every other point of knowledge. And it's all conspiring to bring out the best in us.
Mm-hmm. So what are you being drawn to nowadays?
Silence, and really refining my consciousness, refining my thoughts, refining my feelings, my reactions, really looking at myself constantly and saying, is this the level of purity that I'm capable of?
So now you live with a few young sisters. And so now you are playing Chandru.
Right, that's true.
Right? So how is it now that the tables have turned? How do you feel? How is it different?
Yeah, sometimes I even, when I'm looking at the sisters, I feel Chandraben's expression on my face. And the qualities that I learned are patience, wait, go slow, and think about things and then respond. That was what I learned. Whereas my tendency is to jump in, say, no, 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 don't do it that way, do it this way. And but Chandraben did that with me sometimes, and I didn't like it. So why would anybody else like it? In general, her demeanor was very quiet, and she didn't get involved very much. I'm more involved because that's my personality. And also, there aren't a lot of other people around here like in San Francisco. There's not a well-oiled machine like there was in San Francisco. It's just myself and these new Kumaris.
Fabulous, fabulous. So now in the Chicago Center, in the current moment, what is your understanding of karma? How has it changed in the present time?
So I'm going to tell you a story, if I may. It's kind of a long story that spans a few years, but I'll be very brief because it goes through a level of understanding of karma. So when we moved into this center, the center is in a neighborhood with a lot of nightlife. So on Saturday morning, there would be garbage on the street. I go out, I pick up the garbage. Sunday morning, there's more garbage. And after a while, I started getting annoyed. So I said, is this my karma picking up garbage? And when I thought about karma, the conclusion I came up with was, I lived in this neighborhood when I was young, so I knew what the neighborhood was like. And I was the one who recommended that the Brahma Kumaris purchase this building. So I said, well, when you get this building, you get garbage. And that's part of your karma. You chose the building, you pick up the garbage. So I was fine with that until one morning I went and it looked like somebody had dumped the ashtray from their car right onto our property in our garden. So I kind of went ballistic inside. But then I picked up the cigarette butts and I said, I've got to go to a higher understanding of karma. So what I remembered was when I was in my 20s, I smoked. I'm sure I dropped my cigarette butts on the street. So I said, this is a karmic debt coming back to me. And the understanding was everything has to be resolved at some level. So I picked them up and I was happy. And I kept picking up trash, and I kept picking up, especially cigarette butts. So many people smoking and dropping their cigarette butts. And after about a year, I said, wait a minute, I have not dropped this many cigarette butts on the street. Why are these cigarette butts? Why do they keep coming? So I realized if I was going to be happy about what I was doing, and that's really what karma is about, understanding karma is so that we can be happy, I have to come to a higher understanding. And so the understanding that I chose was that the people who drop the cigarette butts are probably never going to come in the meditation center. My only connection with those souls is through this little piece of trash. So as I picked up the little piece of trash, I had good wishes of peace and happiness for the soul who dropped that. And then it became a win-win situation. That soul got good vibrations and I got a good feeling.
Fabulous.
And then there's a sequel. The sequel is there's one student who would come in, whenever he would come to meditate, he would pick up the trash. And after a couple of years, he came in one day and he said, you know, there aren't any cigarette butts on the property anymore. And I looked out and he was right. There was lots of cigarette butts up and down the street, but there were no cigarette butts on Baba's property.
Wow. Thank you.
So just the understanding is that karma is a feedback system, and it feeds back to us what we have to pay attention to and what we have to change in ourselves so that we can go to a higher level of consciousness. And even if it feeds back to us cigarette butts, that's an opportunity to go to a higher level of happiness.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you so much for giving of your presence. And we are really happy you stuck it out through all the cigarette butts that you were able to share with us. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for putting on this beautiful program and taking us deeper into the understanding of these universal spiritual concepts.
Right. Thank you. So, divine beings, we have karma today, but before we start karma, I need just 1 second. So give me a second and we will start karma. All right, so karma philosophy. So when we are talking about karma philosophy, we would like to first share with you what our revelations are. So as we mentioned before, that the Supreme Soul has revealed these teachings to us. So the teachings of the soul, the teachings of the Supreme Soul, the teachings of the confluence age, the teachings of the cycle, and now today karma, the teachings of the tree of humanity, all of that, these are revealed teachings. And so whatever I'm sharing with you on karma philosophy is again revealed teachings. And so I want you to bear with me, and I want you to experiment with it, because I feel the philosophy of karma is very, very important. And it's something that we really need to understand to be able to understand how we can set our life right. And so when we talk about karma philosophy, we are also, we would like to first talk about what does karma mean. So karma, actually, the Sanskrit word karma means action. So let's say if I regularly tell someone, I want you to do this action, right? So if I translate, let's say, I want you to take that pillow and put it there, right? I want you to do the action of taking that pillow and putting that pillow there. So even though it's a very mundane task, right, of an action of taking one pillow somewhere and putting a pillow another way, the word for action in that sentence would be karma. So you understand how karma actually it's like saying action, right? It's like in Sanskrit saying action, but we have a deeper connotation of what this action means. And so now in the confluence age, so the confluence age is a very important time. And now in the confluence age, we have the presence of the Supreme Soul. And because of the presence of the Supreme Soul in the confluence age, it is an excellent opportunity for us to understand not only action. So in spiritual terms, not just as a word action, but in spiritual terms, the connotation of karma means action, interaction, and the consequences of these actions and interactions. And it could also sometime be enabling, right? And it could also be intention, but we won't get into that. Maybe in the question, if you want more, we can talk about it in the question and answer. But so it's action, interaction, and consequences. So when we say karma spiritually, that's what we mean. And so the first thing that we need to understand in terms of action is that the soul is the driver of the body. And as the soul is the driver of the body and the driving, right? The body and the soul, where are they driving? They're driving on the field of action, karma kshetra. So this field of action is where everything is happening. And when everything is happening, then there is action, interaction, and consequence. And the most important thing about this field of action and the soul being the driver of the body is that no one, absolutely no human being can stay for even a second without performing actions. Even when we are sleeping, we are performing actions. And so the law or the consequence, right? There's action and interaction, and the consequences, there is a law of consequences. And this law of consequences is called the law of karma, and that is absolute and universal. Absolute, you understand, universal means that it applies to every race, every gender, every nationality, every country. So some laws, right? Some laws are, in some countries, they're unlawful, and in some countries, they're not unlawful. For example, in some countries, it could be unlawful to watch a particular video, and in the United States, you can watch whatever you want, and it's not unlawful. But the law of karma, the law that of the consequences that we perform actions, that law is absolute and universal. And so the Supreme Soul, Baba, God, is the only soul who is beyond this effect of these consequences of action and its fruit. So he is not, the law of karma does not apply to God, to the Supreme Soul. And so in this short confluence age, so remember last time we spoke about the confluence age, and we said that it's 100, give or take a few decades, it's 100 years. And in that short time, out of the 5,000-year cycle, in this very short age, which we call the leap age, like a leap year, you have one extra day, like that. This is a very short age that you can create a destiny of your choice. And that's a very important concept to understand, that we can create the destiny of our choice. So the choice is ours, and we can perform actions and interactions, and the consequences will be up to us then. And so the pen for the line of fortune is action. So if I want to create an elevated destiny, then I have to perform elevated actions. And so therefore, you could say 4 kinds of karmas. There is elevated karmas, there is good karmas, there is neutral karmas, and there is negative karmas. And we will get into all of those. So elevated, good, neutral, and negative. So the principle of dharma. So what does dharma? Dharma is sacred duty. That when I am doing something, that my duty that is sacred, right? And so what is sacred duty? That the Supreme Soul Baba has taught us that sacred duty is when my attitude is filled with benevolence, my vision is pure, and my actions are loveful. And that is my sacred duty. So when I align my karma, when I align my actions to this sacred duty, then I am performing elevated karma. And so every action performs a imprint. So every action that is performed leaves an imprint. And that imprint is on the sanskaras in the soul. So from the first lesson, we spoke about that the soul has 3 organs or 3 faculties: the mind, the intellect, and the impressions. So the impressions in Hindi they're called sanskaras. And so when we say sanskaras, we mean impressions, and these are in the soul. So they like an imprint in the soul. And so every action we do gets absorbed into these sanskaras. And we have accounts, right? Just like we have a bank account where we have a debt and credit and all of that. In the same way, we have karmic accounts, and these karmic accounts again are imprinted in the sanskaras. So every action, every interaction has a consequence, which is based on the law of karma, and they leave an imprint on the soul, and the imprints on the soul also have these accounts, karmic accounts. And so every one of us individually have our own unique sanskaras based on our karmas. So when a soul leaves the body, it takes its sanskaras with it. So that's important to remember when a soul leaves the body. So the soul, because in some aspects of Hinduism, they say that the soul is immune to the effect of action, but the soul is not immune to the effect of action, because when you perform action, it leaves an imprint in the sanskaras. And when the soul leaves the body, the sanskaras, everything go with the soul. And so we are taking our karmic accounts with you. I remember seeing a bumper sticker a few years back, which said, wherever you go, your karma goes there. And actually it arrives even before you do. So wherever you go, your karma goes there. And so because your karma travels with you, because it is going in your sanskaras with the soul with you. And souls travel very fast. Like once the soul leaves the body, it travels very fast. If it has a karmic account with someone, let's say you leave the body in the United States and you have a karmic account with someone in England or London, immediately you will go there. The soul travels very fast. And all souls, except the Supreme Soul, every single soul goes through the cycle of birth and rebirth. And so our sanskaras go with us, right? From birth to birth to birth, go with us. So what that means is our karmas also go with us from birth to birth to birth to birth, because karmas are in sanskaras, they get absorbed in sanskaras, and those sanskaras keep traveling with us. And so none of us are exempt from the cycle of birth and death, and none of us are exempt from the consequences of the karmic accounts except one soul. And that soul is the supreme soul. So because he's exempt, because the supreme soul, because Baba is exempt from all of these things, the supreme soul is telling us he is able to, because he's outside the system. And because he's outside the system, he's able to tell us very clearly what is going on in the system. Because within the system, we cannot tell clearly what's happening. But outside the system, you can tell. And so the one who is free from birth and rebirth, the Supreme Soul, is telling you this. So the field of action, remember we spoke about the field of action. And so the field of action or karma kshetra is right here, right? Exists here. So in this field of action, we do good and bad actions are performed. So both good, bad, elevated, whatever, all happen in this field of action. There is no other place. There is no outside somewhere, in ether, someplace. No, there is none. The field of action is here, and all of these karmas can only be performed here. And so we perform actions through the body. The soul adopts the body, comes into the body, and through the body, through eyes, through our hands, through our feet, through our mouth, we perform actions. So actions, like I mentioned before, they are neutral, good, bad, and elevated. So actions are neutral, good, bad, and elevated. So neutral actions we will talk about in the next session right now. And good actions are actions when you perform in virtues, all of that. Elevated actions are actions that you perform in remembrance of God and in soul consciousness. So that is the difference between good and elevated. So elevated actions can only be performed when we have an understanding of the soul and when we have an understanding of the Supreme Soul. And so the other important thing about actions is, so think of the field, right? The field of actions. So the thoughts are the things that plow the field, and actions are the seeds in the field. And so how we plow the field, what kind of seed we plant in the field decides the tree that grows and the fruit that we get from it. And so to be able to get good fruit, the field, our thoughts, seeds, our actions have to be elevated. And so that is why it says, whatever you sow, so shall you reap. Because both are important, both thoughts are important and actions are important. So now let's have a meditation for 5 minutes on karma. I want you to take a deep breath. And while you are breathing in and out, just remember and connect with yourself as a luminous being behind these eyes in your forehead, shimmering, alive. You are that shimmering soul, the living being, the conscient being in the body. And while you are connected with who you are, you begin to reflect on the principles that govern karma. The dharma, our sacred duty that we have to align our actions to. A dharma, or sacred duty, should be of pure love for everyone, feeling that everyone should benefit and have a pure vision. And these actions and attitude leave an imprint on the soul. Every action I perform leaves an imprint, good, bad, or elevated. And this imprint creates a karmic account. And karmic accounts are absolute. They just don't disappear. At one point or the other, you reap the just rewards of your karmic accounts. You're able to do this and overcome your negative karmic accounts by remembering the Supreme Soul, the one who is beyond the consequences or the law of karma, the purest being who's above the system of karma. And here you are with the Supreme Soul, the soul connected to the Supreme Soul and combined with the Supreme Soul. You're absorbing this feeling of belonging, of love, and you remember that you are originally pure, and your original nature was sacred duty. Your original nature was having a pure vision for everyone, having pure love for everyone. And with that sacred duty, you make a vow to align it and make it part of your everyday actions, everyday karma. With that powerful thought, come back to here and now. Om Shanti. Om Shanti, everyone. Om Shanti. So let's do our second presentation. So, in the second part of karma, first we will talk about elevated karmas, right? And then we will talk about neutral karmas, and then we'll go on. So first is elevated karma is, like I mentioned, karmas that you can do at the confluence age, that is when you are soul conscious and in remembrance of the Supreme Soul. So those are elevated karmas, because the Supreme Soul is a very pure soul. And when he is a pure soul, he is able to, whenever actions that we do, when we become soul conscious and connect with the Supreme Soul, then they become elevated. And now let's talk about actions that are done, neutral actions. And so every soul, when the soul enters the physical world, which is the beginning of the golden age. So every soul in the beginning of the golden age, every single soul who's in the golden age, in the beginning of the golden age, is pure. And when the soul is pure, the original sanskaras, the original nature, like originally, right? When we say when something is in its original state, so the original state of all souls is knowledge, powers, and virtues. They are innate to souls. That's the original nature of souls. And their actions, when the original nature of souls is the actions, when done in this elevated state, gives fruits of peace and happiness. And so that happens in the confluence age, right? And in the golden age, we have the reward of the effort we made in the confluence age is in the golden age. And in the golden and silver ages, actions are neutral. That means they do not have any kind of effect because they are neutral. They're so natural that they're neutral. They're so aligned in soul consciousness that they're neutral. There's no consequence because you are reaping the reward of what you did in the confluence age. So neutral actions are actions that are in perfect alignment with Dharma. So there are two times actions are in alignment with Dharma. In the confluence age, which you have to make effort, and when you make effort, neutral actions are the reward in the golden age. And in the golden and silver ages, again, it's Dharma, but they're neutral because of the age. So copper age onwards, in the copper age onwards, there is duality. Duality is that sanskaras are either dictated by good actions or bad actions, that is body consciousness or the vices, right? So when you forget, this is very important. So in the copper age, in the golden and silver ages, we are masters of the self. And when we forget we are masters of the self, the battle inside the soul between the virtues and vices and good and evil begin. It's not an external battle, it's an internal battle. And when that internal battle begins, and when you lose the battle to the vices, or when you lose the battle to evil, which is another form of saying the vices, then you act against the voice of your conscience. And that is when you accumulate negative karma or bad karma, negative karma. And so when such actions takes place, they leave an imprint. So every action leaves an imprint, but this imprint is a negative imprint in the sanskaras. So these sanskaras, acquired sanskaras, then are based on body consciousness. You understood? This is beginning in the copper age. The age of duality begins. The fight inside happens between our virtues and our vices, and the vices win. And when the vices win, then we acquire body conscious sanskaras. So during the Copper and Iron Ages, that is when the law of cause and effect, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It begins in the Copper Age and goes on into the Iron Age. The law of cause and effect prevails. So the influence of actions means, so we are influenced by negative actions. And this is again very important, is it begins, negative actions begin when we have a desire for a particular outcome in our action. So we do actions, right? In the Golden and Silver Ages, you don't have desires for outcomes in your actions. Let's say you love someone, you don't think, oh, they should love you back, they should give you something back. You don't think all of those things because the actions are neutral. But in the Copper and Iron Ages, when you do something, you have a desired outcome. And when you start having a desired outcome for actions, that is when negative karma is accumulated. So that is when not only negative karma is accumulated, but the soul goes into bondage of actions instead of relationships of actions. So relationship, let's say a pure relationship of action is where you are performing an action without any desired outcome. And bondage in action is when you're performing an action with a desired outcome. And so that is when we get trapped. We get trapped by this body consciousness, by this wanting, this desires, we get trapped. So soul consciousness brings out our original pure sanskaras. And that is the elevated karmas. It starts by soul consciousness, when we bring out elevated, original, pure sanskaras. And the way that we can do that is by becoming a detached observer. So in our next meditation, we will talk about how to be a detached observer. So we have to be a detached observer of ourselves, of the soul, of the body, of the actions we perform, the field of action, right? This is all what we are seeing is the field of action. So we have to become a detached observer of everything. And once we become a witness, a detached observer of all of these things, then we have controlling power. Then we go from bondage into relationship. And so we have to align our karmas with elevated spiritual teachings that Baba gives us. We align them. And so when something is in your awareness, you are able to use it. Another important thing to remember. Why do we need to remember something? Awareness means nothing but remembrance. If you keep remembering something, let's say you don't have tolerance, right? But you keep remembering, this is what tolerance means. This is what tolerance means. This is what it means that whatever it is I give, it doesn't matter. I have equanimity in whatever is happening, all of these things, right? So you remember all of these points of tolerance. And once you start remembering these points of tolerance, then when you need it, you'll be able to use it. This is an important thing to remember. Because whatever you remember, you will use. If you don't remember, you cannot use. This is the deep significance of thoughts. That's how we plow the field of karma. The field of action, we plow with awareness of spiritual teachings. And so change your awareness, you change your entire world of actions. You change your awareness, you change your entire world of actions. And so what happens is at the confluence age, Baba teaches us how to perform elevated actions. So without becoming soul conscious and without Baba's presence in our lives, we cannot do elevated actions. So to perform elevated actions, I need to become soul conscious and remember Baba. And then there is something important that Baba teaches us, and that is karma yoga, is having remembrance while performing karma. So that means that I come into action one moment, and the next moment I am detached and soul conscious and detached from doing actions. So I'm able to keep practicing that. One moment I'm in action, the next moment I'm detached from action. A karma yogi. So we all can be karma yogis, right? In Hinduism, what they say is, oh, if you're just on a household path, then you're a karma yogi because whatever yoga, your karma you're performing is automatically in yoga. Baba says, no, it's not automatically in yoga. You have to be in yoga. You have to be in soul consciousness. You have to remember Baba for you to be a karma yogi. So a karma yogi, when you perform actions with that awareness and the detachment from actions, then you have a healthy relationship with actions. And detached and loving as the doer of the action. So we have to be both detached and we have to be loving. And so we have to remember awareness, awareness, awareness. When we have awareness, we are able to use it. And so we have to experiment with the power of pure thought, or we have to experiment with the power of awareness. And so with that, let's have a few minutes of remembrance. Take a deep breath. And prepare to see yourself as a soul detached from the body. So as an observer, as a witness, observe who you are, the luminous being. That is animating this body. And you, the luminous being, now see this body, detached observer. Just watch this body. And now, through these eyes, just witness the field of action around you. Everything you see is part of this karma kshetra, the field of action. And in this state of a detached observer, become aware of yourself as a pure soul, a child of the Supreme Soul. And as a pure soul, as a child of the Supreme Soul, you have all virtues, all powers, all spiritual knowledge at your fingertips. With this awareness, you use it. And when you use it, you become a karma yogi connected. Connected with your dharma, with the highest principles. Every action you do has a repercussion. Nothing is going to waste. It's absolute and universal. And the way to elevate our actions is to remember the Supreme Soul, the purifier who is beyond the effect of the law of karma, the benevolent one, the beautiful one, the pure one. Just be here for a few moments, absorbing his love for you. And very, very gently, now again, see yourself as a detached observer. And you make a promise to yourself that you will come into a relationship with karma, with every action you do, by not having a desired outcome. You will perform the action and leave it to the law of cause and effect to bring you whatever it's supposed to bring you. With that thought, come back to here and now. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So peaceful, so nice. Thank you so much, Sister Shireen. Wonderful meditation and also wonderful sharing. So now I would like to open up for you to ask the question. So please write your questions to our chat box, and our two presenters, Sister Shireen and Sister Dorothy, will address your questions. So welcome, Sister Dorothy and Sister Shireen.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Bhumika. And thank you, Shireen, for your presentation. And we will see what questions come up for today. And I don't see any yet, but I'm sure there'll be a few. We are running a little bit late today, or more than a little bit. So if you have a question that's really burning inside you, please put that up. And while we're waiting for that to happen, someone from last week asked a very good question, I think. How do we change ourselves spiritually to get into the golden age? So would you like to answer that, Shireen, Ben?
Sure. Today, from this book, right, the whole presentation today on karma was from the story of immortality, and I was very moved by how we have to align our dharmas with our karmas. And our sacred duty right now is to have a pure vision, a pure attitude, and love for everyone. And so if I do 5 things, if I become soul conscious, if I remember the Supreme Soul, I have a pure vision, pure attitude, and pure love for everyone, that's how we'll get into the golden age.
Okay, I do have another question here. And that question is, when will the new world be created? These are leftover questions from last week.
So the new world is being created as we speak. It's not just woof, one day it'll come, right? So the new world is created through our transformation. So when enough souls in the world transform, then the new world will come. And so as we speak, many souls are transforming. Many souls are becoming soul conscious. Many souls are connecting to the Supreme Soul. Many souls are understanding the deep importance of the confluence age. They're doing all of these things. They're performing elevated karmas. And so that kind of transformation will bring about the new world when enough of people in the world do it. And so all I have to do is join these enough of people in the world doing it.
Okay. And I have one more for now. God wants everyone to have all the good virtues because we are all loving beings. Then why were their vices created? And why can't He make them go away so that everyone will be loving and caring in the world?
To understand God's role, you have to understand that He's beyond the system, right? He's beyond this system. And the image that comes to mind is, have you ever seen this? It's called something where in a bottle you have a whole little system where you have little plants and all of those things. It's a closed system and everything is going on in that system, right? You're watching it from outside. You can't go and mess with anything of the system. And actually, the Supreme Soul doesn't do that. The Supreme Soul will not mess with the system. The Supreme Soul comes and tells enough souls that this is the system and this is what you have to do. Because if it was in His power, He would give everyone love. He would give everyone good wishes. But we have to account for our karmas. We have to do what it takes for our negative karmas to go away. Let's say if I hurt someone, I can't go to God and say, oh, forgive me, or God can't take it away. Because what about the person I hurt? And so that is why this system is in place and the Supreme Soul is beyond the system. And so we have to understand that very deeply to understand the Supreme Soul cannot individually micromanage each piece.
All right. And we do have one question here. How can I know or feel what kind of karma I am doing now and how to change these karmas?
When we talk about lifestyle, which I think is next week, we will have a better understanding of what is it that we have to do. But definitely for now, we need to, our most important thing is we need to become soul conscious and connect with the Supreme Soul as a being of light, right? And so that is the most important, to get away from our own body consciousness. So for now, that is the most important thing we can do. Then we change a lot of things in the lifestyle. Then we have, spiritual study. We have to do that. So we have to change. Deep transformation in the soul has to happen. That's what we need to know. And that's how we know when there's deep transformation in the soul.
Very nice. And so that concludes our questions. And tomorrow we will go into more depth of the laws of karma, the intricacies of karma, so that we learn how to perform the best elevated karma of all. And so I think now we're ready for our blessing. So your blessing for today. Shireen, you want to read that?
Sure. You infuse everything you say with goodness. Your wise and peaceful words disarm defenses, open hearts, and inspire others to blaze trails of possibility. Om Shanti. So now let's have a moment of silence.
Om Shanti. Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you to everyone and also to Sister Shireen and Sister Dorothy for wonderful sessions. So today we completed our episode 13 and tomorrow we'll be having episode 14. So here you see on the screen, it's the YouTube link. Please visit and revise the sessions, episodes, and also share with others who can take more benefit from that. And it would be very appreciated if you can please send your feedback and experience, how you're feeling when you're listening. Would be so grateful. And then if you still haven't done your register, please do so that we can send you the reminders. And also, even in future, if we do anything, any new programs, we can always send you invitation. Website, you can always visit our website for even buying the book, The Story of Immortality. And also we have audio link there. And also, if you haven't been to any centers nearby, or if you want to connect to your any center which is nearby, you can always visit our website and you'll be able to find the address. Okay, thank you very much. And now see you tomorrow. Om Shanti.